Can I go outside?
No.
Oh God, yes. Say it again.
I thought you hated being restricted.
Yeah, but the way you're doing it this time is so much better.
Okay.
Say it again.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with doing this skit.
You know what, that's fair. We can end it here. I already got the general point of the video across.
Okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't get anyone else to do this, okay? I'm sorry. No one was available. Hello, and welcome back to the Persona 5 Royal Review Series here on Macca. I am Macca, and last time we killed a guy. Okay, obviously we didn't actually kill anyone, but the general populace doesn't know that, and we're not exactly in a position to come out and say that wasn't us. Theorizing that we've been set up by the real criminal, the Phantom Thieves decide to lay low for a while. During this time, public approval for the thieves plummets, while everyone runs back to supporting Akechi. In the meantime, we got midterms coming up, as well as more Confidant updates! All I was able to accomplish this time around was getting Yusuke to rank 7 and Futaba to rank 6. Though I was able to max out my intelligence, bringing an end to having to worry about my social stats. Every activity that builds on them is now utterly pointless. Following midterms, Haru visits Maruki to talk about everything she's been going through with her father and his death. It's actually a nice bit of character development for Haru that sadly feels tacked on. I'm really quite a fan of how she says the gang doesn't feel real, that she can't sit down to eat and hang out with these people who are all open with each other, all because she wasn't raised in an environment where people can be that informal and vulnerable. It really reframes scenes like the first half of Destinyland, and suggests that she might actually be putting up a front here, that it's harder for her to celebrate when she's feeling awkward and uncomfortable with it. The problem is that this new piece of character development was added in Royal while scenes like Destinyland's were in the original release, meaning they were clearly not written with it in mind. A director's cut of a movie could easily change the meaning behind a scene, but the majority of the time it's because that meaning had always existed. It was just cut out of the film for one reason or another. In Royal, this sort of scene exists to try and fix the problem of Haru's lack of development in the original, as opposed to restoring a piece of cut content. It makes it harder for me to believe that she was uncomfortable here, because I know that wasn't the intent behind the writing. Now, to be fair, this moment is part of a series of scenes where every main character interacts with Maruki, and normally when this happens, it ends up reframing the story that was originally there and adding to their character. Emphasis on adding. With how Haru's story was rushed, it ends up feeling like they're trying to add flourishes to a house that wasn't built well in the first place. While lying low, Futaba gathers everyone to talk about a discovery she made. Turns out the code written by the Medjed that threatened the Phantom Thieves is unlike any other Medjed member to date. In fact, it's actually more akin to a hack on the fan site that she recently noticed happening in September. Around the same time, Okumura shot up the ranks. It seems as though whoever framed us for the murders might have been playing the long game. Meanwhile, the worst character in the game is conspiring to further a plan that will take down the Phantom Thieves once and for all. Unrelated, Sai has just been put in charge of this big huge operation the SIU are planning to take down the Phantom Thieves once and for all. The police start interviewing every member of the Shujin student body in the hopes of finding the group. This coincides with the upcoming Culture Festival, in which Makoto is put in charge of the guest of honor that was voted on by students. This guest, both surprisingly and not, is Akechi, who doesn't actually believe the Phantom Thieves are at fault for Okumura's death.
Damn brat! I'll sue!
Seeing as Sai isn't at home anywhere near as often, Makoto hopes Akechi could become their new source of information into the police investigation. During a public interview with Akechi, he reveals that he's actually discovered the true identities of the Phantom Thieves before even the police. Before he can reveal who they are, he fakes a phone call and has us meet in private. There, he reveals photographic evidence of us leaving the metaverse, and that he too has been granted the metanav as of a month ago, which explains how he just followed us into Okumura's palace that one time. The reason he doesn't believe the Phantom Thieves are responsible for the death of Okumura is because he was actually attacked by the person with a black mask and only barely escaped. Threatening to report everyone to the police, he blackmails us into helping him find and bring the real killer to justice. Everyone is shaken up by how masterfully he played them. But before Joker can go home and figure out how to handle the situation, he runs into Kasumi, who invites him to go to the after-festival dance in the school gymnasium. This sequence exists to justify an anime cutscene in which Kasumi is dancing. I don't know how else to explain it. All that happens here is everyone dances and then they leave. Neat. But before Joker can go home and figure out how to handle the situation, he gets a text from Haru, who invites him to the after-festival party in the school gymnasium.
Do you think the Phantom Thieves are really Shujin students? I think they are, your father's killers.
Bro, what is? Following the repeated revelations that the Phantom Thieves have been easily manipulated over and over again, the gang meets to have a group mental breakdown. I remember during my first playthrough back in 2017, it bugged me how uncritical the game had been of the Phantom Thieves' actions up to this point. Sure, there were moments of doubt, but those doubts always felt like half-assed attempts at some kind of nuance, seeing as there was always overwhelming evidence to support their decisions. It really wasn't until now that Atlas properly started to critique the Phantom Thieves. They genuinely walked right into a trap because they weren't truly being critical of their decisions. Did Okumura need a change of heart? Absolutely. But it wasn't something that was really thought through prior to doing so. The only reason Okumura was on their radar at all was because the masses demanded it. They grew complacent and just went along with what everyone wanted, only later finding actual justification. They did the right thing, but they were irresponsible with how they went about it. To me, this is the first time it feels like the Phantom Thieves are truly being tested on a moral and ideological level. Sometimes taking matters into your own hands is the only option, but it's not something you can do haphazardly. As much as I love superheroes, actual vigilantism is so much more complicated than just doing the right thing. Of course, the scene ends with Joker turning morale around, aiming to roll with the punches and turn the tables on those attempting to manipulate them. But a scene like this was such a long time coming. Hey look, a bald guy!
Damn brat! I'll sue!
I'm doing this gag twice because I forgot to do it in the last video. Gotta make up for lost time. The next day, Akechi calls a meeting where he announces his intent to change Sai's heart to cull her reckless behavior and desperation over catching the Phantom Thieves. She's even going as far as potentially falsifying evidence and ruining someone's life for it. After they disband, Morgana asks Futaba to do two things. One, to dig into Sai and learn whatever they can about her. Two, I don't know, the screen gets all bright and warped because LOL random XD so quirky. Soon after entering her palace, Shadow Sai confronts us, telling us where the treasure is as she wants this to be the fairest game possible. Akechi gets the worst Persona awakening in the game, I wonder what's up with that, and we decide to regroup tomorrow and try this again. Before we get into the palace proper, it's time for this month's extra topic, and it's one that has been a long time coming. It's been a while now, but as you might remember, I held a series of polls on my Patreon, where my patrons could pick up to 3 non-Phantom Thief confidants for me to cover. The winner of those polls were Torinosuke Yoshida, Sadayo Kawakami, and Tai Takemi. While I still haven't finished off Tai's confidant, I feel now is a good time to go over their stories and talk about them. Starting off with the first winner, Torinosuke Yoshida. In my original playthrough, Yoshida was actually one of the confidants I went out of my way to finish off, and as surprised as I was that he won the first poll, I'm actually really happy he won out in the end. While there are confidants whose stories tie in better with the main narrative, Yoshida is one I feel really hits at what's going to become the final message of Persona 5. The main theme of Yoshida's story can be summed up as such. Corrupt politicians have made people apathetic towards politics. Yoshida was a man who wanted to do right by his constituents, but was seduced by the power and luxury his position provided him. The shading dealings and white-collar crimes he committed gained him the reputation of No Good Tora, a name that has stuck with him 20 years later. Now, wanting to atone for what he did, he stands around in Shibuya giving speeches that no one cares to actually listen to. That is, until Joker approaches him. While it's very unlikely for the player to know this when it happens, Joker is a direct victim of a corrupt politician that Yoshida was once like. But as he listens to what he has to say, Joker starts to realize he's more than just another politician. He's someone who truly cares, trying to get people who don't care to do so. Throughout the Confidant, Yoshida and Joker slowly start to win the people's favor and turn those who once mocked him into believers. They're getting people to care again, to see that there can be hope within the government. However, the people who bank on this apathy recognize the threat, and thus try to put a stop to Torinosuke by seducing him back into their corrupt system. They want to take advantage of his newfound popularity while getting him to turn his back on his beliefs and personal crusade. They do this by intimidating him, trying to convince him to join their side, letting him worm his way back into politics through easy means that in the end would only justify the public's apathy. Of course, he rejects the offer, wanting to work his way back in through the power of the people, to show that the system can work and is worth engaging with. Yoshida is a personal favorite confidant of mine because of how positive and optimistic it is about politics. Rather than giving in to political nihilism and cynicism, it argues that the system is not inherently corrupt. Rather, it's only through apathy and the corruption of those in it that have made it what it is. It's a system that can be shaped by the people, but if left unattended will be warped and skewed by those who recognize its importance. And that no matter what, you should not give up on your personal beliefs and compromise yourself no matter how things might look. Also, Yoshida is just a really cool guy. He's not young, he's not hot, he's not some cute anime girl. He's like 60 years old and wins you over through pure charisma and effort. I really gotta hand it to his voice actor, William Sawyers, a fantastic actor who's really perfected the sad, lovable old man. Now, I just spouted out a lot about the man of the people, but frankly, I don't have as much to say about Kawakami and Takemi. Not to say that they're bad or that I didn't like them, but rather I just have so much to say about Yoshida and what his story means. To me, Sadao Kawakami is in this middle ground. As a character, she's practically tied with Yoshida as my favorite of this group, but her confidant is the least interesting to me. The rewards you get for it are easily the best in the game, however, freeing up so much time for you to do stuff. The basic premise of Kawakami's story is this. Feeling responsible for the death of one of her past students, she's forced to work herself to death to make ends meet while trying to pay off that student's guardians. It's the emotional and financial exploitation of the average working class person, all because Kawakami refused to give up on him. This confidant focuses more on character than it does an overall theme, and it's because of that reason Kawakami ends up being one of my favorites. Hell, returning to the story now that I'm 5 years out of college, I can relate to her struggles even more than I did the first time. Sure, I'm not being blackmailed, but I'm quite literally in between jobs right now and am worrying about my dwindling bank account. Patreon link in the description, by the way, please. What makes this confidant so meh to me is how heavily it's carried by Kawakami herself. There's just not that much I can chew on thematically or narratively that doesn't feel cartoony or surface level. I guess it's just too melodramatic and unrealistic to me. I know this game addresses a lot of Japan-specific problems, but to me, this just feels too out there. Of course, you can take all of this as a metaphor for some bigger issue, such as the exploitation of the working class. But this specific situation is just so weird and contrived that I can't take it seriously even as a metaphor. And again, the Guardians feel like the antagonist in an after-school special. They're so goofy. Like, the second they're in the room, I can't take this seriously. Finally, there's Tai Takemi. Hot take, Tai is fine. I don't mean hot fine, I mean fine. I feel like people's fascination with her is based more so on her aesthetics as opposed to her actual character. She's a goth punk dommy mommy doctor, but beyond that, I really don't connect with her in the same way that I do Yoshida and Kawakami. I will say her confidant is pretty damn good though. Tai was once developing a drug for a rare disease when a colleague of hers rushed the procedure, throwing her under the bus when the untested drug put the test patient into critical condition. This is a story about the dangers of ego in an industry as vital to human survival as the medical field. Tai's colleague was jealous of her success and went out of his way to purposefully mess up her research and get her fired for it. In the process, not only did he ruin the reputation of a good doctor, but he also put an innocent girl's life in danger. And that's all I really have to say about it. When you compare it to a confidant like Yoshida, this story is actually pretty straightforward. But unlike Kawakami, I actually think it works out pretty well while still tackling a very real subject, that of medical malpractice. I feel like it's straight and to the point, and while I might not be able to go on and on about it, I like that it's able to speak for itself while not feeling like it's dumbing down its subject matter. All three of these confidants have their strengths and weaknesses. While Kawakami's excels in her characterization, I feel it struggles at getting me to take anyone else in it seriously, preventing the full impact of the dramatic moments from really hitting. Tai is the other side of the coin somewhat, with her story really working for me, while I don't feel much for her character beyond my immediate impression. To no surprise, Yoshida comes out as king here, mixing the best of both worlds and utterly perfecting it. It makes me wish more people would talk about this man because to me, he's one of the most interesting characters in the game. Overall, the confidants in Persona 5 are pretty solid, even if there are a few that fall short. There's no way the social link confidant system is going anywhere when Persona 6 comes out, but I do hope they continue to evolve the system both mechanically and narratively when that time comes. And now we arrive back at the casino that started it all. This place holds so much importance to Persona 5 long before we ever even learn the context of it. But it doesn't exactly mean it's good. So is it? Fuck yeah, it is.
So we know the dice, see what they're made for. Come on, why don't we spin the wheel? See who it may call. Give in to temptation. Win it, maybe lose it all, yeah. Who knows where the winds of fate may lead us?
In terms of aesthetics, it's easily the most fun palace in the game. Whether intentional or not, it's like Atlus tapped into that creepy psychological design philosophy that real-world casinos use to turn people into addicts. The lights, the colors, the interesting design, it all just works so beautifully. It also helps that the dungeon's main theme, Whims of Fate, is a complete bop. The layout of this place is also a step up from past palaces. It's so complex when you compare it to most dungeons before this. Even when a palace had solid layout, Sai's Casino makes it look like a bunch of hallways. Every area feels layered, with some offering multiple ways to progress. Lots of areas that are just off the beaten path make you actually feel like you're sneaking around and finding detours to avoid enemies, as opposed to just awkwardly hiding behind a corner that the guard can still clearly see you in. The puzzles you solve are all contextualized as finding ways to rig the game in your favor. Beating up the guy rigging the dice game against you. Sneaking through the ventilation in a dark maze with locked doors meant to keep you from winning. Messing with a slot machine with horrible rates so that you're guaranteed to win big. Just brute forcing your way through the battle arena in what is supposed to be a series of one-on-one battles that aren't one-on-one. All the while, the game throws back to an early section of Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. I also gotta highlight Kyle Hebert's performance as the announcer here. Him getting more and more upset that you're winning when he bet against you, while trying to preserve that announcer voice, is pretty damn funny.
Bullshit! Why the hell aren't you dying, you goddamn phantom queen? I have a bet on this too!
All of this ties back in with a dialogue option you can pick earlier in the month. We're turning the tables on the ones in control. We're beating them at their own game. Unlike past palaces where the thematic elements were criticisms of the type of person the owner was, Sai's palace is a critique of an entire system. The legal system. It's why the location of her casino matches the real-world courthouse. Speaking as an outsider looking in, some of the more common criticisms of the Japanese government I see in their video games are ones aimed at their judicial system. There is a 99.8 conviction rate for criminal trials that go to court. That is around 5% higher than the rate here in the United States. And if you're American, you know how bad our legal system is. This insane degree of convictions has led to multiple games made specifically to critique the entire process. The most notable being the Ace Attorney series and RGG Studios' Judgment series. This palace is about so much more than Sai. All she is one of the many perpetuating said corrupt system. In terms of differences between the original release and Royal, I can only really find one that's of any importance. In the vanilla release, the House of Darkness section included an area between the maze and the boss arena. For whatever reason, this area was cut in Royal, though I can't really figure out why beyond simply streamlining the section. I don't remember this part from my original playthrough, and from what I can see of it online, it doesn't seem like anything bad enough that it would need cutting or reworking. I guess it's gone now, so who cares? As we run through the casino, Akechi is on top of his game the entire time, and clearly knows way too much about how this place works. He has so much planned out that if I didn't know any better, I'd suspect him of setting us all up. Once we make it to the treasure room and head back home, Akechi says we should wait to send the calling card on the 18th. Seeing as he has us by the balls, we don't really have much of a choice in the matter. Delaying sending the calling card is honestly great. It's abnormal, showing the level of control that Akechi has over the group and creating a sense of unease and anxiety. In a game all about time management, sending the calling card acts as a sort of climax. Sending it leads to you fighting the shadow, putting that month's palace behind you, and giving you a sense of relief. You can relax because the only objective required of you has been taken care of, leaving you to coast by until the day the target confesses. By delaying this sense of relief, it creates this uncomfortable tension that you can't get rid of until Akechi says so. All of this especially works on someone like me who tries to get every palace over and done with as soon as possible. So, while we wait for Akechi to let us do our thing, it's time for more Confidant updates. I'm gonna speed through them because I got a lot done. Ready? Good. Ryuji ranks 8 and 9, Akechi ranks 7 and 8, Takemi ranks 8 and 9, An rank 8, Futaba rank 7, Makoto rank 8, Yusuke rank 8, and Haru ranks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The day we send the calling card, an assembly is held to see off Maruki now that his time at Shujin has come to an end. You can't do his confidant anymore past this point, so if it's not rank 9, you ain't getting the third semester content. As a reminder, you only need to get his confidant to rank 9 in order to get the new content. But in order to get the true ending, you also have to have Kasumi's confidant maxed out and Akechi's confidant at rank 8. After the assembly, Maruki meets up with us to have one last conversation over lunch. Having finished his paper, he wanted to thank us as both someone to talk to and as a phantom thief. In a frankly fantastic example of hiding story elements in plain sight, Maruki was literally in the background when Ryuji, Joker, An, and Morgana exited Kamoshida's palace after saving An. As time went on, he connected the dots and approached us so that he could secretly get first-hand knowledge of cognitive science. We max out Maruki's confidant and then head over to LeBlanc to send the calling card. Whoa, funny filters while the gang talks without Akechi. Atlas is so kooky, I have zero suspicions about anything. Much like with Shadow Okumura, Shadow Sai makes off with her treasure, forcing us to give chase, following her to a giant roulette wheel where we do battle. Shadow Sai's fight can be broken up into two distinct phases. The first phase has you gambling away your HP, SP, or money by having you predict whether the ball will land on red or black if you go for low risk, low reward, or within one of 3 sets of 30 if you go high risk, high reward. Conceptually, I like this idea, but ultimately this gimmick ends up feeling like a complete nothing burger once you figure out what's going on. The first time the wheel is spun, you will lose due to size rigging of the game, prompting Morgana to ask you if you figured out how. Once you answer that there's a glass lid preventing the ball from letting us win, you send one of your party members to shoot it out the next time the ball spins. No matter what, this time around you will win, leading to the second phase. Narratively, I think this phase works, but in terms of gameplay, it quickly loses any novelty it has on repeat playthroughs. If you die in the second phase, you have to waste time going back through an incredibly linear phase that's just too long in the tooth. There's no real variation or strategy here beyond bet low the first round, pick the glass option, bet high the second, and don't attack Sai at any point, or else she'll bring you down to 1 HP. Hey, sorry, complete aside. I just wanted to share that Google Docs tried to tell me that the word Beyonce would work in place of the word beyond in that sentence I just read. Thanks, Google. The second phase has Sai transform into one of the coolest designs in the entire game, taking on this horrifying rusted war machine look that just does everything for me. In the original P5, Sai would start using the roulette again with zero rigging, all while using a mix of gun, physical, and almighty attacks. Once her health is down low enough, she'll use the move Desperation, which lowers her defense in exchange for raising her offense. Not only does this buff stack with her Heat Riser skill, but it also can't be removed, making her subsequent Berserker Dance attack incredibly deadly. In Royal, things play out somewhat differently. While her first phase is the same, in the second, the roulette wheel changes its purpose. Rather than gambling away HP, SP, and money, the roulette wheel randomly changes the element of Sai's attacks alongside giving her a different set of affinities. This change not only makes Sai much more formidable, but it also makes her hard to predict. For instance, I brought Morgana into battle as my healer, only for him to become a liability when Sai switched her element to Zio. It's here that establishing a confidant with Hifumi comes in very handy, as just starting it unlocks the ability to switch out your party members on Joker's turn. I didn't do this for some reason, so you won't be seeing it here in my footage. Don't make the same mistakes as me, okay? I made this a lot harder on myself, and I don't know why. Once her health is low enough, the roulette wheel changes her element to Almighty, automatically casting Desperation and making the fight play out more like how it did originally. I really like this fight, especially in Royal. I remember in the original P5, this was the first boss fight that really tested my abilities and felt like a genuine challenge. If it wasn't for Okumura, I'd easily say it remains true here. I even died a good number of times. The fight is just so cool with its gimmick, the genuine difficulty, and, again, the design. Beyond just looking cool, this design actually has some symbolic merit to it that just makes it even better. Shadow Sai is named after the demon Leviathan, a fallen angel that joined in Lucifer's failed rebellion against God, and now acts as the representation of the sin of envy and the gatekeeper of hell. That last part alone makes sense with Sai's character, acting as a sort of gatekeeper of the legal system. However, another dimension of this comes in the influences for the design. One of the most influential pieces on social contract theory is the book Leviathan, or the Matter, Form, and Power of a Commonwealth, Ecclesiastical and Civil, by the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. This book, named after Leviathan, details what the author believes to be the optimal structure of a society in government. On the cover of said book is a king holding a sword and a scepter, much like how Shadow Sai comes equipped with a sword and a gun. It's as if the design is saying this is what Sai has come to believe an optimal society to be. A rigged system of winners and losers. Once we beat up Sai and get our hands on the treasure, we end up being surrounded by a bunch of shadows. Joker volunteers to lead them all away, bringing us back to the cold open. Everything playing out the same way we saw before, only with a short, look how far you've come, you still got a ways to go, from Arsene during the original tutorial battle. Much like before, Joker is captured by the police and told of a traitor that sold them out. The next day, Sai comes to interrogate us despite effectively being removed from the case, but due to her stubbornness, the people in charge humor her and let her do it anyway, leading to the framing device the entire game has been using up to this point. During our talk, we're able to convince her that we're not the ones responsible and are able to get her to do us a favor. Show this phone to the traitor, Akechi. On her way out, Akechi shows up to interrogate us now that he's the one in charge. Sai shows him the phone and leaves. Akechi heads down to the interrogation room, kills the guard, and kills Joker, making the entire thing look like a murder-suicide. The worst character also gets assassinated via mental shutdown, which does nothing but make the game better in my opinion. While this is happening, everyone else is going about their day as normal, until it's reported on the news that the leader of the Phantom Thieves has committed suicide while imprisoned. Except they're not surprised. They're elated. They turn the table on their enemies. They knew Akechi was going to betray them immediately after he cornered them in the gym, because he heard Morgana talk about pancakes. I'm gonna be frank, the Akechi twist was probably the worst kept secret in the game, and it has nothing to do with just how openly people talk about it online. My first playthrough, the pancakes thing was such a dead giveaway, and it instantly ended the mystery. There's also the fact that aside from Morgana, Akechi is the only Phantom Thief whose confidant progressed automatically in the original release. That alone signals him out as an oddity within the main group and could easily lead to the player connecting the dots. Oh, and let's not forget that he's completely absent from the intro. There are just so many obvious signposts that it makes me wonder if Atlus, assuming they wanted this to be a big twist, was banking on me forgetting about all of this over the course of the 70 hours of playtime. Though that's not to say this is bad, far from it. Just that if Atlus was hoping for me to pop off here, I don't think they did the best job of it. One thing I remember someone telling me years ago was that Akechi being the traitor wasn't the actual twist. That Atlus wanted it to be obvious so that they could distract you from the real twist. The Phantom Thieves playing Akechi from the start. Yeah, I don't know about that, especially now that I've replayed the game. I definitely agree that the second twist is the bigger of the two, but it still feels like Akechi is meant to be an oh shit moment. I will say that while I didn't believe Joker was dead for a second, I genuinely didn't know what game Joker was playing with the phone my first time through. The phone Sai showed to Akechi was actually being operated by Futaba remotely, and once it was out, she activated the meta-nav and dragged Sai and Akechi into Sai's still standing palace. And because they were nowhere near the courthouse, everything seemed absolutely normal. Because it was the metaverse, Joker didn't actually get shot. What Akechi shot was a cognitive version of Joker that existed in Sai's palace. Once Akechi leaves the room, the meta-nav is shut off and everything goes back to the way it was. Personally, I think this plan makes sense, but the way Persona 5 executes on the storytelling here is a bit messy. The plan is convoluted, and it's not until after it all plays out does it get explained. Now, convoluted plots are not inherently bad. My favorite game of all time is Metal Gear Solid 3, and one of my favorite manga is JoJo, for God's sake. I think the problem I have with this sequence isn't the plan itself, but more so the pacing. This entire plan unfolds over the course of 30 plus minutes of non-stop cutscenes before anything is explained. In that time, it cuts back and forth between characters who are all over the place, as well as including flashbacks to conversations the game hid from you, where Joker, Morgana, and Futaba plan everything out. All the while going out of its way to make the dialogue vague enough that you don't figure out what's going on too early. By the time it's revealed what's going on, I feel like you were just put through so much that trying to apply that explanation to everything you just witnessed is really overwhelming. Feeling overwhelmed might have been the point, but I don't think it works for me entirely. I still like how everything unfolds though. All those scenes that randomly ended with a strange filter being contextualized as Joker's mind being foggy as a result of the drugs is a great narrative device, and I almost wish it was used throughout the entire story. It takes the framing device and makes it a part of the narrative itself. almost turning Joker into an unreliable narrator. I can imagine using the gaps in Joker's memory could actually help better disguise the traitor by adding scenes that, through Joker's drug-addled mind, make the other Phantom Thieves look just as suspicious as Akechi. Then, once the drugs wear off and you play through the final few palaces, he starts to recall what actually happened in those moments, revealing scenes that could show intimate moments between the Phantom Thieves that show the strength of their bonds. Then you can contrast those moments with your interactions with Akechi during Shido's palace. Honestly, the more I talk about this, the more I feel like this is a missed opportunity to work in a theme of trust that could be used to build on the grander theme of relationships and the failings of society. You could explore that the desire to be accepted in this corrupted world could drive someone to betray those they hold dear. Well, now I'm just rambling. Let's get to the wrap-up. Sai's Palace is easily the most iconic location in Persona 5, and it completely deserves it. This arc, while maybe a little predictable, is stellar pretty much across the board. Rather than waiting, the story jumps right into the good stuff, picking up where we left off with Okumura, and at no point does it feel like it's wasting time. The feeling of control Akechi has over the Phantom Thieves is palpable, not only in how he forces the gang to heal, but even in the gameplay itself. Ironically, for a game that I've often criticized for ripping control away from me and preventing me from playing the game, I actually feel just as trapped being forced to wait to send the calling card. Yet my immersion is never broken and gameplay is never kept from me. Persona 5 perfectly conveys the feelings of the Phantom Thieves into the player in a way I don't think has been done this well since witnessing the horrors of Kamoshida back in April. The palace itself is a ton of fun and is probably the best dungeon thus far. The boss fight against Sai is amazingly good and provides a proper challenge without becoming unfair. The way Sai's personal story is interwoven with the grander narrative is also great. In past months, each antagonist arc is actually quite basic. They're corrupted for one reason or another, we force them to change, and now they're repentant. With Sai, we don't actually force a change, but rather it comes naturally through sitting down and talking with her about everything that has happened so far. She doesn't change sides because we stole her treasure, she makes that change on her own. It shows that people can come back from these awful places if you're willing to give them the chance and they're willing to listen. This is just a fantastic arc and, again, is completely deserving of being the most iconic area in P5. It does stumble a tiny bit towards the end in my opinion, but beyond that, this arc is amazing. While Futaba's Palace gets to the core of what the Persona series is about, Sai's is where we start to head towards the core of what Persona 5 is all about. Before you guys head out, I want to show you a cool trick I learned about YouTube recently. If you're watching this in full screen, exit out of it, and if you're listening to this in the background, look at YouTube for a second. Okay, I'm about to say the thing that all YouTubers say about the buttons just below the video, so I want you to look at them. Ready? What do you guys think of Sai's Palace? Let me know down in the comments below, and while you're there, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when my next video is out. Do you see the cool rainbow effect right as I said like and subscribe? Pretty neat. Anyway, check out my Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you not only get 24-hour early access to all of my videos, but you'll also be supporting the channel. You all have a nice weekend. I'm gonna be finishing off the base game in the coming days, so I can decide whether or not I should merge the final 2 palaces into one video or just keep them separate. I'll see you guys next time, where things are just gonna continue to build from here.
Run, run.